why I was interested in this concept was actually quite simple. We live in Africa, and very few of us actually eat African food. Most people that I know don't see it as something that they would necessarily go out and eat at a restaurant. Most people are not curious about it, and in the food industry where I work, it's not something that clients often ask me for. And yet, when I traveled or when I've eaten at my friends' places, I've often eaten amazing food, and I've been exposed to the fact that often there's a lot more similarity than difference in the ways that we eat. The Columbian Exchange was also known as a period in history where colonialism happened, and so it's a very intense topic for a lot of people. What people don't often understand is that there was a lot of exchange that happened in that period, and so not only did they bring different kinds of animals over from the New World to the Old World, which is seen as Europe and Africa and Eurasia, but they also brought fresh produce, goods like tomatoes, like chilies, like capsicums, bell peppers, actually never found anywhere else but there. At the same time, there have been people exploring the African continent for centuries. I mean, the Chinese probably came here in the 13th or 14th century. They were always exploring along that coastline. And many people think that tamarind is an East Asian ingredient. It's actually African. It's from West Africa. Thanks, fools, I got you. So, but it's true, right? Like, you see this and you think there's been this great erasure of our contribution to food that we really need to bring back into the conversation, not only because of the fact that it's important for our diet, but because it's important for the environment. We've given up on ancient grains like sorghum. We don't use amaranth, we don't use millet. We don't think of these as things we would immediately reach for, but also they are branded out of our access because now there are health foods, there are superfoods, they've got a great lifestyle markup on them, and so they become inaccessible to people who've actually eaten this all their lives. Okay? Part of this is also to do with something like nutrition. So one of the things that I found when I was doing the research for this was that in Nigeria, for example, and in Congo, some of the most common foods are also the least nutritionally valuable. So cassava, for example, was brought from Latin America. It grows really well, but it's got no nutritional content. But it's widely available. People eat it. People make curry with it. It's not like it's not a great thing to eat, right? But it's because of things like conflict that make it very difficult for other things to be grown, to be cultivated, to be propagated over time. That something like cassava becomes an essential staple for a lot of people, but in a way that often robs them of the nutrition that we keep not only alive but healthy. At the same time, what we also found out in the course of doing the research was that ancient grains didn't form more than 20% of the national crop produce in any of the countries that we looked at. South Africa, Ethiopia, Ghana, Nigeria, 5%, 10%. Maize, wheat, barley, 25, 30, 50%. Those are what our diets have become, but it's not necessarily how we should be eating, and it's not necessarily best for our planet. They are water-heavy plants, they are environmentally difficult plants to cultivate, and they have been modified to a point where they also don't represent what their end varieties look like. So in Mexico, you can find all these different varieties of corn. In South Africa, you find yellow and white corn. And it's not necessarily the healthiest or best for you. So what we were thinking about with this concept was how do we introduce people to the ways that food has changed over time? And what you're about to try is a kikwat, which is an Ethiopian dish. Everything is small plates, so there'll be lots of food and it will be coming out in tiny portions. But the whole idea of kikwat was that it was made with things that were easily available. Spices like turmeric, onions, garlic, but then also butter that had been fortified, smoked, steeped. So that's what we do. You'll have a mislewa later, which is made with chili and tomato, and you'll see what the difference can be. But in actual fact, these foods have been a part of African cuisine long before anyone arrived here from the New World, right? You'll see there's a lot of overlap with Asian food. You'll also find things that might look familiar, but actually are not. I'm very excited to introduce the concept of bobotie being the epitome of South Africa, because South Africa is such a xenophobic country and our national dish is not South African. Bobotie is Congolese. It comes from the Bobute region of Congo. And in actual fact, there was a period in Congo's history where Henry Morton Stanley was actually in the process of undertaking conquest in Bobute. And part of his work was that he engaged in slavery, because he didn't just give people papers to sign away their land. He also gave them papers to sign away their labor. They just didn't know it. And And so they found themselves de facto enslaved, and where they didn't end up staying and working to build family islands in those different places, they were then shipped to places like South Africa. And if you read people like Ray Jacobs and people who've been keeping our history alive through fiction, you will find that there is never just a Malay slave in a household. There's someone from Madagascar, there's someone from Congo, there's someone from Zimbabwe, there's someone from India. And so when Babute came, it got taken into the kitchen, made with scraps, introduced to some spices, and it became a roti. And someone decided a Malay slave made it, therefore it's a Malay dish, because we don't actually care where things come from. And now it's our national dish. In a country where we consistently reject our Africanness in so many different ways, in a country where we are consistently saying we are exceptional to Africa, our national dish is in actual fact a very African dish. And that makes me super proud. So what I want for you to do tonight is try things, be interested, open your mind, see if there's things you like. Does anyone have a shellfish allergy besides this gentleman here? Just checking, because I need to make sure no one gets sick. Okay, cool. Just need to be sure. But we are going to bring out some sauces, we're going to bring out snacks, we're going to introduce you to some of the things we've been doing. Our first dish along with the kick is actually some lamb that has been braised down with grape and date and served with olive. And so give it a try, small portions. It's served with some full on the side, full madams made with butter beans and tahini. And then we've also got some factory for you to try with all of the little accompaniments, and we've got some sauces on the table. We will be out in stages to introduce the different dishes that will be on your table. We also go along the east coast of Africa where there's been a constant historical migration. And so we're trying things that are actually very common to that region. So for example, tamarind fish, coconut rice, sambals, sauces, delicious. We'll also be having some Zanzibari cake and some orange semolina cake for dessert. There's lots of things on the menu. So just sit back, relax, and let us treat you to a lovely experience. Thank you so much for coming.